Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for watching Beyond the Headlines. Well, it wasn't quite like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, but it did feel like hitting the lottery as candidates running for local office learned their place on the ballot. So with that, city races are finalized for the November election. Well, this was the scene at City Hall chambers where campaign representatives and city officials gathered to learn how the ballot will look. With a few ping pong balls and the luck of the draw, the order was set in front of an enthusiastic crowd last Wednesday evening. So let's take a look at how the ballot would look when voters head to the polls. Starting with District 4 voters, Tanya Benavides will be at the top of your ballot, followed by Osvaldo Valdi Guzman Jr., Rick Garza, Manfredo Salinas, and Ismael Lozano. After that, just because you can't see her doesn't mean you can't vote for her, but you do have to write her in. Priscilla Villarreal Treviño, otherwise known as La Gordiloca, will be on the ballot as a write-in candidate. District 4 is an open seat as Councilmember Alberto Torres reaches his term limits. Now moving on to District 5, two challengers will look to oust Ruben Gutierrez Jr., the incumbent, from office. District 5 voters will look to choose between Jose Ovando, Jesse Perez, and Ruben Gutierrez Jr. in that order on election day. In District 7, Michelle Molina will look to be voters' first choice as she aims to challenge incumbent Vanessa Perez for the district seat. Third on the ballot is Felipe Ramirez, who is also tossing his hat into the ring. And a crowded field also awaits District 8 voters and incumbent Alyssa Cigarroa, who will appear second on the ballot. Horacio Palacios, Sergio Dorantes, and Luxandra Guerra will all vie for the District 8 seat. Early voting is set to start on October the 21st and run through November the 1st with Election Day on November the 5th. And that's where we begin this morning's discussion. Of course, making up our panel, we have our contributors, Sergio Mora and Luis Villarreal, the KGNS General Manager. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Lots of people came out to...
That is interesting,
yeah, you know, not a single incumbent is getting a free ride. Everybody has a challenge. And District 4, of course, is an open seat. Lots of people came out for District 4. So what do you think that tells us?
Well, I think that was the first thing that came to my mind too. Is that normally we used to see incumbents really not be challenged when they run for re-election. It's no longer happening. I think there's an increased interest in the political process, which is always good. It's not obviously good news for those incumbents, so they probably wish that they would have gotten a free ride. But such is life.
Yeah. So lots of these obviously are going to go into runoffs. Yeah.
So I assume you guys in your previous lives, and I'm sure there's a psychology behind the lists and the order.
Yeah.
Can you apply that to some sort of? I mean, is there a real advantage to being top of the list, or is that just kind of psychological?
It comes into play when people don't know anybody. Yeah, when people don't know anybody, and it's going to happen a lot during the presidential race, in that people that normally don't come out to vote come out and vote, and they know the presidential candidates,
but they don't know anything else.
But they don't know the what's called the down ballot races, and it's been proven that when that happens, a lot of the voters simply will fill in the first name.
But they can no longer do that straight party thing, right?
No.
Okay.
But it's interesting because it's obviously not ideal.
Not that it matters in city council because there are no party affiliations there, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
so.
And it's not ideal, but at the same time, it's become sort of a tradition. It's one of the important days on the calendar, and the person that gets first on the ballot normally it's considered a good sign, a good omen.
The other thing that caught my attention was the lack of nicknames.
Well,
you know, we have Flipper and we have Flipper and who's the other one?
There's Flipper and Valdi.
And Valdi. But normally everybody is Sergio, Serge, and you know, Mindy, Min, whatever. Everybody here, every politician in Laredo has always had a little
what they're called.
Nickname.
Yeah, Flipper.
Do you think there's any particular council seats that we need to be on the lookout for? Anything that was strikingly, blaring to you?
I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting that Alyssa Cigarroa got 3 opponents, but I think that she's been a strong incumbent. Vanessa Perez got, I think, a strong challenger, and Michelle Molina simply because she's on the UISD board.
And then District 5, you know, that's an open seat. And typically when you have an open seat, you will have folks coming out because there's no incumbent that they need to try to oust out of their seat. That's a lot of folks who want to represent District 4.
I think that that list is short compared to other times that we have had open seats.
Open seats, where we've had 7 or 8 candidates.
7 or 8 candidates or more. I mean, when the mayoral race was open, you saw how many candidates. There's usually 8 or more. So that's, I think, is a pretty good list. You have Tanya Benavides. You have Rick Garza, who's Chuy Garza's brother, who's on the LASD board. Baldi Guzman, he was the, I think he was Parks and Rec.
He's Parks and Rec director.
And obviously, looming large, even though she's a write-in candidate, La Gordiloca is obviously...
So explain that one to me. Okay, so she's a write-in candidate, so she's not on the ballot.
Yes.
Do you have to register to be a write-in candidate?
Yes, and the deadline was last week.
So a voter cannot write in, I vote for Sergio Mora?
It wouldn't be legit.
What do you mean it wouldn't be legit?
Because you have to register that you are going to attempt to win the seat as a writing candidate. Yeah.
So
you have
again,
to let your,
if I went on my
campaign
right now and say, you know what, I want to run for, my district's not up for election, but let's just say I did, and I went on and I did a campaign and whatever, and I convinced enough voters to write my name on the ballot, it wouldn't count?
Not if you didn't register as a write-in candidate.
That was your intent.
That doesn't make any sense. So you have to register, but you can't appear on the ballot?
Well, there's finance records also that you need to submit as well, don't you, to comply with?
Oh, you have to file. The first thing you have to do is you file a treasurer. That goes before you actually spend any money or receive any political contributions. Then you have to turn in your application.
You can spend whatever money you want. You don't have to declare anything other than your donations, can't you?
No, you have to declare expenditures too. Like, I think that, like, you don't have to, like, literally write what it went to. If it's, like, under $100, you could be spending $40, $50, $60 cash. But once you start spending higher amounts, you do have to write everything down, every single
So back to the write-in question.
Yeah.
So is the name there, or is there a line that says
There's a line.
For a write-in candidate?
And potential voters who go in there have to write in that person's name.
Okay.
It's very
interesting.
It's obviously very difficult to do, but
didn't Alisa Cigarroa do that?
Alisa Cigarroa did it very successfully. Her vote margin was really, really big,
and she was a write-in candidate.
It was like, you don't expect a write-in candidate to do as well as Alisa did during her first run. La Gordiloca obviously has a very large following, a passionate following, but the question is how much of that following actually lives in District 5? Is it 5?
4.
4? How many live in District 4 and will actually
how many of them are registered voters?
I have no idea. But the thing is that you normally have to have a really organized, well-funded ground game in terms of actually having people going and finding the registered voters and talking to them and making sure that during early vote, preferably, obviously, during early vote, they actually go out and do this. It's a lot more complicated, a lot more labor-intensive than the traditional just campaigning. I'm going to be on the ballot, just check off my name.
I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but are there rules as to, okay, how you write in the name?
Yeah, yes.
Like, if I write in, and you know, we're speaking about this in particular, but if I write in Gordiloca, is that going to count? Or do I have to write her official name?
I am under the impression that you have to write it as, like,
put La Gordis
how
and
she
still,
registered on it. Like
how
Priscilla La Gordiloca. She did include La Gordiloca. Priscilla La Gordiloca Treviño. Is that right? Yes.
I'm not sure, but okay, so you have to write the whole name.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely not a position that a candidate wants to be in. That's for sure.
That to me is something to watch. I am very intrigued because she does have a significant following on her social platform. I am very eager, and not eager, but yeah, I'm eager to find out how far that takes.
It's going to be interesting because she started.
Would have been better had she been a real on the ballot.
Yeah,
would have been a fair assessment, I guess.
Yes,
of the situation.
I am under the impression that I think she moved to the district, and she did not move in time to make the
Got it.
It's
interesting.
The cutoff.
It's interesting. What do you think are the most? It seems like every election there are cliques. Right now, the cliques are not really identifiable. Are there?
There are, yes. Yeah, there are cliques.
There are cliques?
Yeah, there are cliques.
So you think there's a balance hanging here? I mean,
most definitely.
There is.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
there is a balance of power that hangs in the balance.
And when you look at the, from your, inside perspective, when you look at these lists, can you say, okay, this is on that side, this is on that?
Yeah,
you can pretty much pick and choose.
Yeah, it's going to be
That's
very,
so
very
sad.
interesting.
That is so sad. Obviously, us, the common folk, we have no clue. We just like Flipper's name, and we'll just.
Well, I mean, that's what you obviously want to avoid. But there are, in my opinion, there are really good candidates that if they were to get elected, the balance of power would shift, and the city would probably take a dramatic new direction. And in my opinion, again, it's.
Are you hopeful?
I am hopeful. I am hopeful because the candidates that are up, that represent what I consider to be the good guys, the anti-corruption guys, the pro-transparency guys, we just want to make the city a better place to live guys, compared to we want to get in there to rape and pillage. I think the rape and pillage candidates are very, we all know who they are. The inside
Well, you
politics.
need to tell me off air, I guess, because we don't want to do that here. But,
So
you need to give me a little.
the insiders know who's there to rape and pillage and who actually wants to do a good job.
Can we say that on TV?
Well, they do pretty much the equivalent of raping and pillaging.
Just city funds.
Yeah.
City funds, definitely. Okie doke. Thank you, gentlemen, for that very enlightening conversation. Well, when we come back, in just over a month since Democrats made the change, Kamala Harris officially receives her party's nomination. We'll talk about the path to the presidency and the winning strategy for November. Stay with us. Well, the Democratic National Convention officially wrapped up after a week of welcoming its presidential ticket. Kamala Harris and vice presidential nominee Tim Walz will lead the Democratic ticket in November. This past week in Chicago, the Democrats rolled out the red carpet for Harris as the party receives a new surge in momentum after President Joe Biden stepped aside. At the convention, Democrats heard from former Democratic presidents, celebrity guests, elected officials, and from the current president himself, Joe Biden. On the last day, capitalizing on a week of festivities, Harris accepted her party's nomination and vowed to be a president for all Americans in her acceptance speech. So that is where we are going to take a look at what you guys thought about that. Did you all watch the 4 days?
It was very impressive. If I answer your question, no, I did not watch the 4 days, but I did not watch the RNC either. But that's a different story. It was really obvious that the party has really, come together. I mean, it was pretty impressive to see the way that the party right now, who knows how it goes all the way closer to election.
75 days.
But as of right now, they did a great job of showing a united front. Everybody. I mean, everybody was in lockstep, the delegates, the presenters, the former presidents, the former loser candidates, everybody who was there, lock her up, everybody was there.
It was a big old party.
Big old party.
And speaking of party,
awesome.
I wanted to ask what you thought about the change in the theme. I use that word loosely because they were really trying to show a party. You mentioned party. They had the DJ on stage. They had the rapper. They had Lil Jon, right?
Yeah.
They had a lot of entertainment. And they kept referring to that they wanted it to be a festive party. Do you think that they were doing that so that they could attract younger voters, so that they can maybe be more hip to younger voters? It was just a very different Democratic Party.
Well, the demographic.
Yeah, but you also want to
wokeness.
You
Let's
also
go do it.
You want to strike a contrast to Trump's anger and fear-mongering and scapegoating and the whole 9 yards. I mean, you can't deny that is his thing.
His thing.
Always.
And a lot of the speeches, because they had very heavy hitters. I mean, the Clintons were there, the Obamas were there.
Great.
Of course, Kamala herself. A lot of them tried to
A lot of millionaires
paint.
and billionaires addressing the crowd there.
Well, a lot of them tried to paint the picture.
Poor billionaires and poor people that have never worked a day in their lives and are telling working class citizens how to live. But that's okay.
We're seeing a big realignment in how the parties, like what they represent. And I think that obviously the Democrats, their coalition was in full display. You have what is being known as the passing of the torch. I think that with the selection of Kamala Harris, I think that a new generation of Democrats, just a lot of people were really concerned about Joe Biden's age and that he was just from
different message,
another
right?
generation. Yeah. So it just revived the party at all levels. And I think that
How long do you think the honeymoon lasts? Because you know that there are sides in both parties, right?
Yeah.
But do you think they keep it together all through election?
It's a presidential race. Anything can happen. But what did happen is that the Democrats stopped Trump's momentum cold. I remember before the selection of Kamala Harris, Trump had the momentum, and now it's a totally different. The tables have been turned. The Democrats are riding this huge wave. This is exactly what a political convention is
supposed to be
for. A lot of people that aren't paying that much attention will pay attention to the conventions, and I think they did a great job at it.
I think
the selection of Tim Walz was brilliant.
I don't like him. I mean, I'm not being. I don't like him. I don't like anybody. No. I don't like him. I don't know. There's
what
just
is it that you don't like about him?
I don't know. There's something about his demeanor and I don't know.
His flannel shirts.
I don't know. I mean, again, I know I have. I don't dislike. I'm not talking about policies or anything. I just don't like him.
One of the demographics that the Democrats obviously are weak in is appealing to rural voters.
And you think he does that?
Democrats have been already being the urban, that represent the urban populations. He was born in Nebraska. He's the governor of Minnesota. He was an ex-football coach.
He's a football coach, National Guard, so he's got military.
Exactly.
He's a teacher. So
be careful with that one. He got in trouble on that one.
So his son stole the show the night that
when he was like, "That's my dad."
He was the speaker.
Yeah.
It's a good, wholesome American family, which is usually the theme that the Republicans try to claim.
Yeah.
So I think it was a very smart move.
Speaking of families, a lot of people were hoping that in Kamala's speech that she would be able to talk a little bit about who she is, because as vice president, you kind of take a step back, and she really painted the picture of coming from a family that could be mirrored by any family. Parents got divorced at a very young age. She was just in elementary school when her parents split up. She and her sister ended up having to live with their mom because, as most kids do, you gotta, you stay with one of them. So she talked a lot about being raised by a single family or a single mom. So do you think that she did a good enough job of letting people know who she was or who she is?
I think so. I think that the themes that you touched on are you nailed it in terms of the message that the Democrats were trying to send with the convention, in that the relatability. A lot of families are.
They really contrasted the billionaire versus the non-billionaire.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
She's not a billionaire. Or at least she wasn't raised in the lap of luxury with a silver spoon in her mouth.
She went to Howard University, which is an all-black college. She was in an all-black sorority. Very different from the traditional Ivy League candidates. J.D. Vance went to Yale, you know. So the tables have turned in terms of, like, they accuse the Democrats of being the elitist Ivy Leagues, and now we are the candidate with the African-American Indian woman and the Midwestern flannel-wearing coach.
And we'll begin at some point talking about issues, because neither one of them wants to talk about issues. One of them is busy criticizing personalities and heritage, and the other one's
crowd
busy.
Size.
And the other one, and when are we going to talk about things that really matter?
Well, they're supposed to
when are we going to
up.
discuss things that really matter? When are we going to talk about how, you know, there are things that need immediate attention?
Well,
when are we going to talk about Israel? We're going to talk about the border.
Well,
when are we going to talk about
some of those things?
One of the main things that has been talked about at length is,
when is she going to sit down for an interview and ask and respond to difficult questions on the spot, like her boss couldn't do?
She will do that.
What, the day before the election?
Going to debate.
In September is the upcoming debate. That they've already agreed
You know
to.
what was very upsetting to me, and again, you both think that I am coming at this from one side, and I'm not. It is disheartening how I'm not talking about cable television. I'm not talking about the CNNs and the Fox News channels of the world. I'm talking about the big networks, our NBCs and CBSs and stuff, the giddiness of the anchors with which they were covering the different, and how different their demeanor was covering both conventions, even how obvious they are in their support or lack of for one or the other. It is really disheartening that there are no more nationally fair and fact-based reporters out there, and everybody's got an agenda, and you cannot watch anything anymore without being pushed to one side. If I see Savannah Guthrie smile anymore, and it is just
we go back to the same thing in that they're
supposed to be
moods.
That's not their job to convey. It is for me to watch.
Hey man, if you're at a happy party where everybody's having a blast, man, you're going to be vibing.
But you are not, and I get that. But that's not the anchor's job to do. So we have to go, because otherwise we don't get a one thing.
We got to do our one thing. That's right. Okay, we're going to be talking about this all the way into November. So the conversation continues, definitely.
Yes.
Well, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break, but then when we come back, we're going to take a look at that one thing that we can't stop thinking about. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We are now headed into the one thing that our panelists cannot stop thinking about. Sergio.
Well, I've really been getting into this genre, which is podcasts that tell a story. Usually we think about podcasts, we think interviews. But there's this genre of podcasts that tells historical stories. I talked about one that talked about the Jimmy Carter race. This one, I listened to a couple of the episodes recently. It's called Real Narcos. And it talks about stories that we're probably familiar with. Pablo Escobar, El Chapo, things of that, Griselda Blanco, things of that nature. But this one does a great job just of really getting into the details, interviewing the agents that were on the ground.
Awesome.
It's a really great storytelling medium, and especially if you drive a lot, I mean, these things make the drive time just evaporate.
Short.
Like
Nice.
you are hooked. Pretty soon you got to where you were going. I highly recommend people check out these podcasts.
Sounds good. Okay.
I just can't stop thinking about the poor astronauts that are in the Space Station.
Okay.
We're supposed to be up there for, I believe, 8 days, and they're going on 2.5 months now.
Wow.
And
they're stuck up there.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I mean, the story is out there, but I don't think people realize how long this poor couple has been there. So,
Okay. Well, my one thing is courtesy of Luis.
oh my
Courtesy
God,
of
no.
Luis, This is called, what is it called, Luis?
Egg in a hole.
It's called egg in a hole. And Yolanda and I had never heard of it before, and Luis showed us how it's made. And I literally, I'm 55 years old, and I just heard and learned this for the very first time.
That's me making it, but
yeah,
wait
so
a second.
explain this to us. What is the purpose of taking a piece of bread out of bread and putting an egg inside of it?
I don't know. It's just an easy way to eat it.
But why can't you just cook the egg and eat the bread on the side?
What do you do with the middle part?
That's right.
You put it on the side and you eat it depending on how you want the egg. Look, you know, I mean,
Okay,
you just
so
you
it's
throw
the
the egg
whole-
in there.
So
and
it's the whole, like, the plate?
No, you put it on the plate.
No, I mean, well,
It's just easy to eat and it's fun. Look at how beautiful it comes out.
That does look a lot of
It's
fun, yeah.
It's like a lot of fun. And then, if you know, and you can eat, that's the hole.
Oh,
you
that's
know?
the hole on the side.
There you go, and that's how you eat it.
I think it's artistic.
I think Luis should have a cooking show on
Yeah.
I
Sunday.
just can't believe you have never, some
Never.
people call it egg in a basket.
Okay, you want to come on the morning show and do this for
Yes.
our Foodie Friday
Yes.
segment?
You want me
Foodie
to boil some
Friday.
water, too?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I love
awesome.
it. Okay, well, thank you all so much. Appreciate having you all with us this Sunday morning. Make sure to tune in next Sunday morning for another edition of Beyond the Headlines. Have a fantastic Sunday.
Egg in a hole.